Shalom Aleichem, and let us learn the Sikha Vayeishev Beis. If you've ever learned Gemara Seita, a lot of the topics will be familiar. Fundamentally, the Sikha is exploring where is Timna. In Parshas Vayeishev, we have the story in the fourth Aliyah that Yehuda Vayered Me'echav, he leaves his brothers, and he has the whole story with Tamar. And at some stage it says by Yugad the Tamar was informed that Hinei Chamich, your father-in-law, Oila Timna, is going up to Timna, and then she decides to trick him and basically seduce him and have children with him. Comes Rashi in the words Oila Timna, Mefarish, and says, Ubishimshon, regarding Shimshon, who the pasuk says, Vayedet Shimshon Timnasa, that Shimshon went down to Timna. Versus here where it says Oila, went up. And what's Rashi's answer? It was sitting on the slant of a mountain. Basically, it was in the middle of the mountain. Some people come up and some people go down, etc. Says Rashi, this stira of Vayeret Shimshon is already started. This stira is not from this pasuk; it's from last pasuk, because this is not the first time that it says Yehuda is going up to Timna. Last pasuk it says Vayal Timnasa. He went up to Timna. So why are you not asking that? And also, Rashi in general does not address something until you have a question al asar on the location. Over here, you don't have the question. I never learned Shimshon. Rashi follows the order. That's one of the basic principles of the Rashi Sichos, that Rashi will only assume that you know something from the past, but you didn't learn this yet. So if the student has no question because he hasn't learned Sefer Shoftim yet, why are you answering it here? And also, why does he have to use the words Ubishimshon hu oimer? By Shimshon said, you should just say there it also says Vayeret Shimshon Timnasa in a different place. What's B'Shimshon hu oimer? So regarding this question that there's a stira, there's an opposing idea. One place it says going up, one place it says going down. The Gemara in Saita, Daf Yud, has three answers. Number one, Shimshon, whose story with Timna caused him to go down and disgraced, it says Vayeret. Yehuda, who was upgraded through the story, he had parrots, and through that Mashiach and kings, etc., it's Aliyah. The other answer is Shtei Timna is two different cities. One was at the bottom of the mountain and one was at the top. And the other answer, the third answer, is there was one Timna in the middle of a mountain. You could go up and you could go down. Rashi chooses the third one. Why is he choosing the third one? If it's the third one in Gemara, obviously it's not the best case scenario. Why is Rashi choosing the third? So what does the Rabbi explain beautifully? Rashi's not coming here to explain why it says Aliyah by Yehuda and says Yerida by Shimshon. His question is more fundamental. Who cares that he's going up or down? Your father-in-law is coming. Doesn't make a difference if the incline is this way or this way. He's coming, okay? And she decides to make a plan how to get her father-in-law to be with her. But what's the incline of the climb important to the story? In general, Hashem tells Avram, bring him up to Elah, because Hashem is trying to say it will be on top of a mountain. But when Avram is actually taking him, it doesn't say he goes up, even though he was climbing a mountain. He says he took him. By Elah, he went. By Avayu, when they came. Who cares? So why is the Torah having to tell you, Ali, especially already in the last pasuk we know, Vayala Timna, that he came up to Timna. So we know that Timna is on the incline if the Torah wanted to tell us to. So why does it have to say it again? Now, the previous time you could have answered that why does it say Vayal Timna? It was a spiritual aliyah. This is something that we saw in previous sikhs as well. Why would you say it's a spiritual aliyah? Because on the words Vayered Yehuda at the beginning of the aliyah, Rashi explained and said, they demoted him. He went down a level. So Vayal, you can then say, is the counter to that. He was now re-upgraded through this story. But that you can only say when the Torah is talking in third person. The Torah is telling you, Vayered, he was demoted. Vayal, he was promoted. But over here, it's not talking about that. It's talking about a conversation, a message that's coming to Tamar, in which Tamar is being told, your father was coming. Your father-in-law coming, it's not obviously talking about a spiritual upgrade. Why are people referring to his father's spiritual upgrade? It's talking about a factual reality. Why is it saying Aliyah? And that's how Rashi explains. Let me tell you about Shimshon. Why? Because by knowing what is Shimshon, that there is over there Vayered and over here is Eila, now you're understanding the context is that the Torah is telling you that it was B'Shipur Har in the middle of the mountain. And that is why it's important to know this in the story, because now that you know that Timna is in the top of the mountain, in the middle of the mountain, this affects the story because now Tamar knows where her father's coming from. If Timna's in the middle, and we're not telling you what direction he's coming from, up or down, she has no idea where to wait for him. Now she knows where he's coming from. Aha, so she said at the entrance to Timna, coming from the bottom. Oila. And that's why Rashi cannot use the other two answers, that there was two Timnas, because then again, it's irrelevant why the Torah has to tell you Aliyah. And the Torah, Rashi will not tell you the story about Shimshon Shnizganeva, that he was demoted, and Yehuda that was promoted, because that was already in the previous Vayal. So now we know why Rashi had to take this. However, the fact is, it's so unusual to build a city in the middle of a mountain. Like, why would you do it? The Rabbi actually goes into the technicality. Why would someone build a city on top of a mountain, even though it comes with cons? The cons of those cities is you cannot build a strong economy there because it's hard to access. On the other hand, it has strong fortifications because in ancient warfare, today you could just bomb from the sky, but in ancient warfare, it made a big difference. If you have gravity on your side, you're on top of the mountain, lucky you, you're fantastic, you're doing great. However, if you're on the bottom of the mountain, on the other hand, you might not have greatest fortification and security, but you have an economy. It's easy access. Why in the world would you build in the middle of the mountain? You could get clocked from both sides. So you would say to build a city in the middle of a mountain is extremely unusual. And therefore, Rashi comes and uses the words Uveshimshon huomer. My proof is that by Shimshon it says many, many times, not just once that you could say it's a spiritual emotion. Many times it says Vayered, Vayered, Vayered. And over here it says Vayal. So you must say that it was in the middle of a mountain, even though it's extremely unusual. And the Rebbe in the Aris brings an example of another city that had such a situation. Even though it's not usual, that was the scenario. Kachamatzav, that's what was going on. What's a lesson we could learn? We've learned in another pasuk, we've learned in the Maimer of the Fidik Rebbe Dibra Maskul Zehayim Tafei Sadekei 1935. They explained beautiful Likudah that you've always heard it as pop psychology. You didn't realize it's Chassidus. That the pasuk it says Mi ala Bahar Hashem, who could climb Hashem's mountain. We see over here that it refers to Avodas Hashem as a mountain. And over there, Chassidus explains that just like when a person climbs a mountain, you cannot stop in the middle because you're going to fall. You have to climb. If you're on the bottom of the mountain, great. If you're on top of the mountain, great. You could stay static. But if you're in the middle of the climb, you can't. So too, a Yid cannot stop climbing because every single moment you're either going up or down, you have to climb. And this is focused on Hanukkah, which we're getting close to. Because if you didn't add on the second day from 1 to 2, then you have not grown. And you want to do the mitzvah, you have to do it. You want to do the mitzvah the same level until yesterday, but you cannot do the mitzvah the same level as yesterday by doing it the same. To stay static, you have to grow. And that's where Rashi is coming and saying, B'Shipur Har Yishev, sitting in the middle of the mountain. To tell us that when you're in the middle of a mountain, you cannot be static. You have to grow up and down, just like Yehuda, staying on the middle of the mountain, being in the Timna. It caused Peretz, which brings Peretz as the breakthrough. Simcha Peretz Geder Mashiach. So to each and every one of us, when we stay vibrant and active, and rather than static, we can bring the Mashiach within our lives.